The Stations of the Cross are a powerful Christian tradition and that helps believers reflect on the suffering and sacrifice of Jesus Christ. On Good Friday, this journey becomes even more meaningful as it reminds us of the price that Jesus paid for our salvation. To help us understand the deeper meaning behind this practice, we are joined by Bishop Denny Banda from Regional Overseer for Victory Family Center, Southern Africa. Bishop, good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's a blessing for me to be here this morning. Thank you.
Absolutely. Talk to us about the significance of Good Friday before we get into the, the discussion of understanding the Stations of the Cross on Good Friday. What really is the significance of today?
I think Good Friday is a moment for us to sit down and begin to reflect on what Christ has done. And I think many people have not come to a place of understanding the gravity of what Christ has done. We are here today celebrating the goodness of God simply because of the sacrifice that Christ has made. So Good Friday must be looked at as a moment of sacrifice, moment of somebody had to go through pain in order for us to be able to experience that freedom.
Very well. Now let's help us understand the Stations of the Cross and why they matter so much on this good day, of course, known as Good Friday.
Well, the Stations of the Cross, first of all, these are things that we don't really see today as it used to happen in the past. So Stations of the Cross are moments where the Christians gathered together and they began to retrace the steps of what Christ went through. So starting from the place of the condemnation where he was arrested and condemned, taken to... So all these stages that he went through, from the moment of condemnation to appearing before Pontius Pilate and going into all these places, the moments of falling. And so the Christians gathered together and began to recreate the moments that Christ went through, and as a reminder of the pain, the suffering that he went through, because it is possible for people to underestimate the gravity of what Christ went through if they don't trace the Stations of the Cross. And if you, I can recall about 14 to 15 Stations of the Cross. So they would actually go through all these stages of what Christ went through. And sometimes there will be somebody even moving with a cross and showing to the public that this is what Christ went through. Although if we compare with Scripture, what people recreate does not give us the actual picture, because the beating, the bruising, obviously you're not going to do it in just recreating the moment. But the whole idea is to bring a picture to the people to say, this is what Christ went through, and we should appreciate what he has done for us. Definitely.
Bishop, is it your understanding that this, the understanding of the Station of the Cross has changed over the years?
Yes, it has, because what happened, in fact, if you go back to since its inception, they would do it actually in Jerusalem. So they would go back to Jerusalem and follow all the steps that Christ went through. And then there came a time that people could not travel. They could not go to Jerusalem, so they would recreate the process in their own different towns. And then eventually it also narrowed down to being done indoors. So it moved from being done outdoors into happening indoors in the churches. And the most important thing is it has to happen in your heart, because now you sit and begin to look in your life to say, what has Christ done? What did he go through? So you begin to reflect on that, even if it's not done in the building, but you have that conversation in your heart.
Definitely. How does, or rather, what does the spiritual walk, what does it mean to actually to take on the spiritual walk, the Stations of the Cross with Christ, and how does this reflect with Philippians 3, chapter 3, verse 10, that I may know in him and the power of his resurrection and the fellowship of his sufferings?
Yeah, I think that reminds us more on coming to understand the suffering of Christ. Because if we just focus on the resurrection, we need to also understand the suffering, what he went through. And the Apostle Paul, as he writes this scripture, he talks about that I may know him. So to know him is not just to know who Christ is, but to also understand what did he go through. And sometimes you tend to appreciate people when you understand the pain that they have gone through to do certain things for you. Like a child would appreciate the parents when they look at the things that the parents go through, the suffering that they go through at work. A child comes to a place of appreciating that truly my father sacrifices for me. So Paul says that I may know him, I may also get to know the suffering of Christ. In order for me to live a better life, I need to come to a place of getting to know him.
Definitely. Now, how does one then, how does walking with Christ through his suffering help us better understand the depth of his love and sacrifice, especially looking at what John chapter 15 verse 13 shows, that greater love has no harm than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends.
That's a very interesting scripture, because laying down one's life is not an easy thing. If somebody was to choose to die for somebody, I don't think there is anyone amongst us today who would be able to say, okay, I'm willing to die for you. So here we see Jesus Christ demonstrating that sacrifice where he laid down his life for me and for you and for everybody out there. So at the end of the day, we come to a place of understanding that we cannot be going for partying. We cannot be going to drink in order for us to celebrate somebody that suffered for us to redeem our lives. So at the end of the day, we need to really look at the sacrifice that has been made. Somebody laid down his life. And as I walk with Christ, I begin to realize that this is a sacrifice that he did for me, and I'm here today because Christ sacrificed for me. So it's a point that draws one closer to God, constantly drawing closer to God. When you feel like you are falling or disgracing from the presence of God, you remember what he did, the pain that he went through. If you fall for the lust of the flesh and the desires of our human bodies, then we are actually betraying Christ based on the sacrifice that he has done for us.
Definitely. And there's many practices that many do on this day. There are those that would go to church. There are those that would rather just stay at home and also have their own communion, Holy Communion, and of course also those that will just, rather just do what exactly you said, that they will go out and celebrate in many different ways. How would you perhaps say a Christian should celebrate this day that the Lord has made?
I think the direct response to that would be that a Christian celebration needs to be celebrated in a Christian way.
Definitely.
So what does that mean? It means that obviously we use that as an opportunity for us to come together. Scripture says, do not neglect the assembling together as it is a manner for some. So whenever there is such a day, a very important day where we commemorate what Christ has done, we come together in fellowship and fellowship with one another. Obviously, some people would feel, no, I want to be at home, I want to be by myself. On such a day, I think it's imperative for us to come together in fellowship. Usually the devil takes advantage of our lives when we are in isolation, when we don't want to be with others. If you are not in the company of other Christians, the devil will accompany you. So the best thing to do is to be in fellowship and pray together, worship together, go to church. And I believe that most of the churches on such a day, they are gathering together and having activities. And obviously there's some churches, even today, in our country that would also follow the sections of the cross and gather in some places, move from one section to another and move from one section to another. Be a part of that, and it will be as a reminder of what Christ has done for us.
Definitely. And how can the Stations of the Cross teach us to, of course, develop deep virtues like humanity, forgiveness, and unconditional love, to apply them also on a daily walk of Christ? Not only is it going to be, of course, Good Friday that we, of course, get to reflect, but making a daily practice to, of course, honor and, of course, celebrate the life of Christ.
Yeah. Everything that happens happens for a reason, and there is a purpose. And if we look at the things that Christ went through, there was a reason why he had to go through what he went through. So at the end of the day, it will help me as a Christian to be able to look at every aspect of the section of the cross, of what Christ did, and begin to look in my life. What can I learn out of that? I may be able to learn humility. I may be able to learn forgiveness in instances where I'm supposed to be revenging when somebody has done something bad to me. Because I sit down and I begin to reflect on the sections of the cross, I'm able to understand that I need to be humble. I need to forgive others. I need to bear with one another in order for us to be able to live a better life as children of God. So there is a lot of reminders at every section. There is a reminder. Jesus Christ was accused of all sorts of things. He was spat at. They beat him. He never responded. He never retaliated. So there's a lot of things that we can learn out of that. For instance, we are living in a time where there is a lot of violence in our nation and different nations. Particularly, we see gender violence. So we can learn from that to say, in instances where I'm supposed to be reacting, I will be able to calm myself down and be able to learn from Christ. How did he respond when he went through accusations? How did he respond when they spit at him? How did he respond when he was hit? So we look at those sections. It's not just for historical events, but it begins to remind us of what Christ has done.
Definitely. Going into a closing conversation, just your message to all Christians, to all of those that, of course, are still running weary. What is your message to all as we celebrate Easter, as we, of course, celebrate and reflect the life of Christ today?
Scripture says, draw unto me and I will draw unto you, I'll draw closer to you. So Christ is always willing to draw closer to us. God is always willing to help us in times of difficulties. So it is imperative for us to look at this Easter as a period of love, where we begin to love one another. And I think we have had a lot of hatred in people's hearts, and we see this, we're reading on social media, we're reading the printed media of things that are happening in our nation. And I think it's time for us to sit down and remind ourselves to say, we can love one another. We can love one another. Namibia, we are a small population, and we just have to be there for each other and be able to extend the love of Christ to people out there. There is no need for us to be moving in bitterness and expressing anger out there. We just have to love one another and be tolerant.
Definitely. Bishop, thank you so much for being here this morning. Have a blessed Easter.
Thank you so much. God bless you.
Definitely. Bishop Danny Banda, the original overseer for the Victory Family Center Southern Africa, was, of course, talking to us about explaining to us the understanding of the Stations of the Cross on Good Friday. This is Good Morning Namibia. We'll be right back after a brief break.